Welcome back to the Win With Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win With Dice team, and this week a special guest. Now, we don't have Ramon for this week, but we do have our very special guest, Alex from Green Ronin and USP and a bunch of stuff you should already know about. Alex, say hi.
Hi. I was gonna say heroes.
Just reflexively, because that's the usual intro.
Well, hi heroes. My name's Alex. I work at Green Ronin Publishing on Mutants And Masterminds, the world's greatest superhero RPG, and I'm the creative director over at the Untold Stories Project, who lovingly donate Calvin to us very often, and we really appreciate him all that much.
Aw. So for people who might be tuning in for the first time, the Win Dice podcast is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. We chat about the games that we run and the games that we play and all the cool, wonderful people we get to enjoy this hobby with. So this week we're basically, honestly, this is just hanging out. We had some topics, but mostly we're just hanging out, to be completely honest. But there was a super special topic that we're going to get into today that I'm sure people are going to be very excited about.
Yeah. Also, for the record, we would love to see more of Ramon too. Ramon has been great every time he's been on USP, and we love you, Ramon, and we would like to see you more often if you're available.
Oh, he is a very busy guy, but I think once I actually start running Lancer, then he will be here.
Yeah. Look, as a voraciously busy person, I completely understand.
All right, we got a ton of stuff to talk about, by which I mean we're just going to be chatting for a bit. But before we get to that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win With Dice weekly GM tip of the week. And this is
the weekly GM tip of the week.
Yep, and this is where Ramon would usually say the title and I would drop the theme song, but I just instinctively went into that and he wasn't here, so. But yes, the Win With Dice weekly GM tip of the week, which will be brought to us by Alex.
Hey, I don't know what the theme song is.
They're close enough.
So, the patented weekly GM tip of the week is, I encourage you as a GM to encourage your players to help you any and every time that you need it. So if there's a moment coming up that you really want to spotlight one particular player, but you don't want to spoil what's going to happen, maybe have a secret little confab with the other players and be like, hey, there's a really cool thing for this player's story that's going to happen, and please don't step on their moment, because that's the worst when that happens.
Yeah, just making sure someone else has their time, has their thing. You just want to make sure no one's interrupting or taking that away from them.
Yeah, and making sure as a GM to let them know, hey, my goal is to make sure everybody has moments. But if you guys can be aware of what feels like one of your moments, maybe push somebody forward into the spotlight if they're being a little reluctant about it, or make space for other players to step up for the thing that feels like what they're supposed to be doing. It's a group story, so we should all be helping each other, prop each other up.
True. And I think this also sort of ties into something we've talked about in here a bunch of times that I've kind of borrowed from Critical Role and Travis Willingham specifically, is just being a fan of other people's characters. And I think if you're doing that, both as a player and a GM, but as a player, if you're doing that, then when you see those moments and someone else is doing something, or someone else's character is coming to the forefront and they're in the middle of whatever scene it is, the Eye of Sauron has fallen upon them and their backstory has become their problem once again. You're just going to sit back and enjoy that because it's fun and it's not you. It's not happening to you.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Good luck, though. Said from every member of the Guardians of Haven to Alara at least once.
I mean, that was kind of deserved. Although those problems did become the entire team's problems.
Right. That's my other weekly GM tip of the week is get Calvin in your game, because Calvin will find ways to make it everybody's problem.
I mean, I don't know. I think secret third tip of the week. I like just setting up things in my backstory. We kind of talked about this a bit in the talkback episode we just did for City of Destiny. But I like to put little setups in the character's backstory, just little dominoes that I don't know which way they're gonna fall, but I just I hand it over to somebody and I'm like, here, do with this as you will.
Mm-hmm. That's Calvin's trick. He gives you all this ammunition as a GM, and then everybody's like, Alex, you're such a mean GM. No, Calvin did this.
I'm just here chuckling in the background.
That's how he gets you. He's like, look how friendly and awesome a Canadian I am. And then
secretly setting up everybody else to seem like the mean, crafty GM.
Mm-hmm. I think my reputation as a traumatic GM is wrongfully earned. I think I am a delight. I've never done anything bad to anybody's NPC ever.
I mean...
CRTM.
I mean, there's still the Sophie situation.
Yeah, that NPC you gave us.
Okay, but in my defense, that wasn't for terrible backstory stuff. That was me just needing a human person for Bowman to talk to.
That's what it... You know what it is? Every time somebody has an NPC love interest in the Untold Stories project, that's the problem. I was like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if Ethan had an NPC girlfriend he could talk to? Because I don't know a lot of the people I'm playing with, and like I don't want to like assume we're all gonna get along, and it'd be cool if I had somebody I could talk to. And then Aunt Puppy was like, hey, you're my special person forever, and screw this NPC. And now they're fighting.
Yeah. There's so much drama in that game. I'm so happy to be like in the midst of it now.
A spider on the wall, you could say.
Aha. Yeah, we just said like a bunch of different tips, so I think all of them are very useful. But just the main thing, be kind to the other people at the table and enjoy their moments when they happen. And they will enjoy your moments when they happen to you.
And they will blame the GM, all the same.
Yeah, that is the fourth tip, blame the GM.
But if it's a GM tip of the week, accept the blame. Smile and nod.
It makes you look like you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, let's get into this episode. So, the impetus for this episode kind of started when we were talking about Alan Wake 2, and I feel like that's going to cover like the first half of this is a discussion about that. But we were talking about the investigative mechanics in that game. We'll avoid any major spoilers, but there'll be timestamps below if you're super worried about anything being spoiled for you. But Alex is only like a couple hours into the game, so we're not going to talk too much about plot stuff. But yeah, we were talking about that a bit, and just how it could possibly relate to tabletop RPGs. So, yeah, I don't know, Alex, if you want to kick us off with what direction you want to take this conversation in, because like, how much have you gone into the investigative mechanics of Alan Wake 2?
Yeah, so, first off, the first Alan Wake is one of my favorite video games of all time. Maybe my favorite video game ever. It came into my life at a very formative time where I was living with a buddy because I'd gotten into an argument with my dad and he kicked me out of the house. And I was staying on my drummer's couch for a week because, a little Alex lore, a million years ago I was in a rock and roll band for a couple of months. And the drummer in the band let me sleep on his couch for a week when I got in a fight with my dad. And I wasn't sure when I was going to get to go home. I wasn't sure what the whole, I wasn't sure where my life was going to go because I was a very dramatic young adult, just graduated from high school. And Alan Wake came out and I played all the way through it in like a 23-hour period, just in one sitting, because it was a story about an author. It was a story about storytelling coming to life and creating all of this trauma and all of these problems for this guy to solve. And I really resonated with that as somebody who has always been an advocate for the power of storytelling. And every couple of years I'll go through and I'll play through all of Alan Wake 1 again, just because it's a action adventure investigation horror game about writing and the power of writing. And Alan Wake 2 came out a couple years ago, and I have been putting off playing it until now because I was worried that maybe it wouldn't live up to the hype. It wouldn't be everything I wanted it to be. And I still don't know if it is, but the first chapter of the game, I have had a blast. It feels very much in the spirit of the game, and one of the things that is central to it is this really interesting mechanic where the character you play in the first chapter has this mind palace that you can access to put up clues as you're gathering them to build your case, to ask, generate leading questions to try to figure out where to go next, and to basically interpret information that you've gathered through the course of playing the game. And investigations are one of what I consider the four pillars of any kind of role-playing game story. I identify the pillars basically as interactions or role-playing, conflict or combat, challenges, is what we call them in Mutants and Masterminds, but basically using your skills to overcome some kind of hazard, like sneaking into a facility, disarming traps, things like that. And then the fourth one being investigations, which are players going to places, collecting clues, interviewing witnesses, trying to get to the center of whatever mystery the game master has presented for them. And I think investigations are one of the hardest things to write and to run in terms of gameplay mechanics. So I kind of wanted to talk about what does an investigation look like in a role-playing game, and how could you potentially replicate the Mind Palace from Alan Wake 2? Over to you, Calvin. I know that was a long-winded answer to your question.
No, that was a perfect setup for our discussion. With investigations in tabletop specifically, one of my kind of early-ish game sessions. Well, like the third arc I ran for the first ever time I was tabletop GMing was sort of an investigation. But, I mean, I kind of just took a existing adventure, filed the names off, and replaced it with other details, as I was known to do back then. I just wasn't as loud about it. I still do it now. But yeah, there were certain things I definitely learned from that, but it was more of a linear investigation compared to, I think, something that could be expanded upon. There's definitely other discussions about investigations in tabletop RPGs that I've looked into since then. Certainly the question of, do you hide things behind skill checks? How do you make this work? How do you set it up so that players can fail forward, essentially? But yeah, going back to the mechanics in Alan Wake 2, what I liked about that when I first interacted with it was just that you, as the player, have to move around the scene, interact with things, look at them, talk to people. That gives you these clues, and you pair the clues together with certain subjects to move forward in the story. And that's kind of what players in a tabletop game would be doing, maybe without the same sort of structure, because it being a video game, it needs to have a way to sort of keep track of your progress. I guess for players, that would be note-taking or something similar.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about the Mind Palace too is that sort of, I have these clues, what could they mean? Mm-hmm. And there's role-playing games I've played, because, like, you were right, a lot of investigations can lend themselves very much to being a very linear experience. And I use the term load-bearing clue because a lot of people who are new to writing investigations for role-playing games, they put all their clues in very intentional places and they hide them behind skill checks. And some of the clues, not all clues are built equally. Some clues are much more important to understanding the truth of the mystery. And making them that important and locking them behind a skill check can lead to that clue never being found and the mystery being impossible to solve. Or the mystery not being able to advance to the next location because the players don't know where to go. And I think the Mind Palace is a very good representation of, a lot of different role-playing games have this idea of like GM guidance. Or there's a game I played called Brindlewood Bay that has a theorizing step in the investigation, where you could take the clues, have a whole discussion theorizing what's going on, and every clue you could tie into your theory adds a modifier to the theorizing roll. And then after you have this discussion, you make a roll, and in Brindlewood Bay in particular, if you succeed on the check, what you theorized is the truth, which I think is really cool. We could talk more about that in a minute. But it's a way of basically conferring with an outside source, whether it's a dice roll or the game master, to say, is this important? What does this information mean? And Mutants and Masterminds, we have GM guidance where you can spend a hero point to get inspiration about something that's going on, to basically sort of ask a question to the GM, and the GM will answer you honestly. Or as honest as the GM can be.
Yeah, as the GM, when you are tying things to skill checks, the way I would kind of do that, just to focus on that specifically, the way I would think of that is not tying the knowing of the clue behind a skill check, because you might put yourself in a dead end, basically. You might back yourself into a corner unintentionally. But you could have it that, say, if the player doesn't do well in the skill check, then it just takes longer to get to that clue. Like, the thing you lose is time instead of losing the clue itself. And that can have its own consequences down the line for the investigation, but it's still capable of moving forward. It just might make things more difficult in the future. Especially if this is an investigation where, it might be someone who's, I don't know, there's a serial killer or something, or they're doing multiple robberies, or some other villainous task. Whatever supervillains get up to. If they're given more time to act on it, then it could make things more difficult in the future if the investigation somehow takes longer because of a failed check. But that still gives you the option of moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you that sort of option of the world is living and it's moving around you. Mm-hmm. So you can advance and create consequences and things like that. Have you ever heard of this idea of, instead of load-bearing clues, having quantum clues, where when you're sitting down to write the scenario, you basically write up 20 or 30 clues that they can find throughout the course of the investigation. And anytime they make a skill check, you decide what clue they find in that moment from that list, instead of putting each of the clues in a specific place. And the clues can be something as concrete as you find a ledger containing details about the person who was killed, or you find the you find the combination for a safe or a location of a secret safe in the guy's office. Or as vague as you overhear a conversation between two suspects that provides information, and then you as the GM decide in the spot what information they're talking about, so that it always feels like player agency is being rewarded, but you're not sticking anything super important in one location.
Oh, okay. So you have your list of information the players need to achieve, and then that's just provided as players make checks regardless of where they are?
Yeah, and you as the GM decide what makes sense from a storytelling perspective based on what they're doing and how you want to implement the clue.
Okay. I have heard of just like having multiple clues in the same spot or something like that, but I haven't heard of like having that more floating list.
Yeah, I really like it. It's something else I'm borrowing from Brindlewood Bay, which is it's a very cozy game of Murder, She Wrote versus Cthulhu, where everybody plays these literal little old ladies who are members of like a book club going like helping solve murders that involve deep ones.
Okay, this arcane Golden Girls. Well, yeah, let's talk about
Yes.
Brindlewood Bay then.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's a great game. I used it to run a scenario at UConn last year with the characters from the TV show Bones. So I lifted the mechanics and the clue procedure for that. I didn't lift the setting, but I do want to run at least a one-shot using the setting because I think it would be adorable to all dress up as little old ladies and solve a mystery together.
Yeah, I feel like I vaguely remember discussing this before and sort of wanting, like, looking at the idea of having a police procedural as a tabletop game.
Yeah, there's so many games that have ways to do investigations, but there are so few games that are about investigations. I noticed while I was trying to figure out what system I wanted to use to do Bones, because I watched Bones for the first time last year, and I dug it, and I was like, I like the format of the story, and I'd like to see how it plays as a role-playing game. I don't know if I'll do it again, but I think I would be down to run the scenario I wrote for it again at some point.
Okay. So what was the scenario about, or was it just like a typical episode of the show?
It was like a typical episode of the show, but I was in my feelings a little bit. It was about basically while preparing for the world karaoke competition in Las Vegas, a couple of roadies find a dead body stuffed into an amp cabinet. And then the Bones crew has to come in and figure out who did the murder, why they did the murder, all that fun stuff. And because it was Brindlewood Bay, I was able to write out a list of like 10 suspects that I thought could be viable suspects for what happened. I wrote out my list of 20 to 30 clues, and then I just set the players loose on the story. They showed up, they investigated, and it was very improv heavy because of the quantum nature of the clues and the fact that the theorize step makes things true. If you roll high enough on the theorize check, that is the answer to the mystery. If you roll low on the theorize check, that suspect is not the person who did it, and the GM gets to add a wrinkle to the investigation, such as the real murderer kills somebody else, or evidence gets damaged by an intern who wasn't paying attention 100%, or something like that to add a little bit more spice to what's going on and to send them back to the drawing board to find more clues so they can theorize again. It really reflected that sort of back and forth nature you find in a lot of procedural shows.
Yeah, like that halfway point where they feel like they solved the murder, and then it turns out they didn't, and then they cut to commercial.
And oh my god, I forgot, I've completely spaced about this mechanic, but they have a mechanic in Brindlewood Bay called cut to commercial.
Oh, okay.
Where if somebody fails at a roll, the GM can say, we could do a cut to commercial right now, and if you give me an ad for a product, you do like an on-the-spot improv commercial that's playing in the middle of this show. When we come back, you will actually succeed at the roll.
Wow. Okay, so it literally is police procedural the game, because I'm flashing back to watching CSI on TV, and it seems like they solved the moida, and then it turns out they didn't.
Yes. Oh my god. And I came up with a list of like insane products to have people do commercials for. Do I still have that list? I need to go check.
Okay, so
Don't mind me.
This actually is police procedural, the tabletop RPG then.
The bones of it are, but the game itself is Murder, She Wrote investigating Cthulhu monsters. But it's a very solid investigation system for GMs who are comfortable with a lot of improving. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck on investigations, because in their mind, they're writing the perfect mystery, and any situation where the GM becomes too enamored with the story that they want to tell can be a hazard for bad railroading or ignoring player agency.
Yeah. Because I was about to ask, like, the game, it seems like you as the GM don't even know who done it, like who did the crime. You just have a list of suspects.
Yeah, there's no answer when you sit down. The answer comes through gameplay.
Okay. So you have your list of suspects and you have your list of clues, and as the players get more clues, that gives them bonuses to their rolls, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever conclusion they come to, should they roll high enough with enough bonuses from the clues, that becomes the actual conclusion.
Yep.
That is an interesting way to do that, because like when I hear investigation in tabletop RPG, to me that sounds like the GM knows the scenario and they have to figure out how to communicate what happened to the players as the players progress through the game. But there is a specific, like, truth or a specific true answer to that situation. That's a fun idea, actually.
Yeah, and there are situations where in your story you need an answer to be true. Like if you're dropping this concept into an ongoing campaign and you know who the big bad is, you'll have to do a little bit more work for a system like this. But I think still using the quantum clues to sprinkle the clues in where they make sense and to make sure they find all of the most important information. There's value in that as a GM. And that helps with rewarding player agency and making sure the pace doesn't get stuck. Because railroading and pacing, I think, are the two biggest issues when it comes to running an investigation. I did not find my list of commercials to cut to commercials, but I did find the list that's in the book. And it's things like Happy Jack's Lumberjack Lumber Liquidation Furniture Sale, or Class Action Lawsuit Against Drink Plus, or Situational Comedy That's My Mama. And you do a commercial for those things, and if it's funny enough and the players have a big enough reaction to it, when you come back you succeed.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. That's fun. Yeah, I'm liking that idea more and more now. Because you might maybe as a GM you might have a larger ongoing plot line where you want a specific answer to your investigation, but yeah, that is kind of fun to not know the answer. Like you figure it out, find out as it goes on with the players. So do you have to set up a motive for everybody, or?
Yeah, that's what I did, because you want there to be reasonable suspects for the players to point things at. That way they have a direction to sort of go in. The adventure I wrote, basically the KJ guy, Quick Draw Scruggs was the victim, a karaoke jockey, a cowboy past his prime who helped found the quote-unquote International Karaoke Association. He's a jolly sort with a reputation for his loud personality and signature red studs and a mustache. He was the de facto CEO of the IKA and bankrolled the operation on his own. Scruggs was stoked to be hosting the contest in Vegas for the first time. And then I made a list of suspects. I made Misha Matthews, who was a contestant who was sort of a pageant mom to her daughter, viewed the contest and the prize as her one shot to live a life that actually means something. There was her daughter, who was looking to break into real performing instead of just doing karaoke, and didn't have the heart to tell her mom that she booked a gig with a local theater company back home instead of coming to Vegas. There was an amateur rapper named Biggie Boyd, who was a local Vegas music personality, who was bumped from the venue's schedule to make room for the contest, so there was a motive there. There was a karaoke failure who didn't qualify for the contest, despite paying for a lot of the operation. There was an Elvis wedding officiant who was one of the suspects, a loan shark, and then Scruggs' wife. So I made a list of 6 or 7 people who were viable suspects that could be pointed at.
Okay. And then the clues were just things that could tie into any of them or into the crime itself, or to add more details to the situation?
Yeah, so I made a list of, it looks like 20 clues or so. My clues were pile of receipts for extravagant purchases. So that's kind of an abstract clue where I didn't specify exactly what the extravagant purchase was, so that it could have been maybe they look into the wife's finances and they find receipts assuming that she's going to get a big life insurance payout, or maybe the person who paid for a lot of the venue and then failed to go through the next round. I did a marriage certificate from the little chapel, a paternity test that calls into question the paternity of a child, a taboo love affair, an attempt to collect a debt. They're very vague clues that could be a lot of different things. A schedule for the contest with one name conspicuously crossed out a secret passage that connects two of the locations for the crimes. And then I had a couple of specific things, like a dangerously frayed electrical cable on the amp, a bottle of heart medication that's been tampered with, signs that the victim died well before being shoved into their final location, a puncture wound from a small knife, records of karaoke contest song selections and audio tracks being tampered with, giving songs to people instead of the person who requested first, etc. And one clue is just a skeleton in an unexpected place.
Okay, that feels like a Bones thing.
It's always a Bones thing.
Oh man, that is a cool game. And then I guess players just like they go through that list of clues and they try to put together a theory based on what they found, and then
and then each mystery has its own complexity level from like 1 to 10, and that's what you need to roll on 1d6 plus the number of clues that you tie into your theory.
Oh, I see. So in some mysteries, you will need a certain number of clues to even try to get to that like actual conclusion. Like you need to find some amount of clues.
Yep. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. It was a really fun role-playing exercise and an exercise in improv. And I had a great cast of players at the game who were, I think, initially a little like, but you know the answer. What, like, are we right? And I was like, I don't know. I won't know until you roll.
Yeah, I feel like, players would assume that you as the GM, like, again, like, you know the answer, but...
I don't know anything. That's my secret.
You're just the narrator.
I got these pages just before you did.
That's fun.
Which, if that doesn't say something about my GMing style, I don't know what will.
Yeah, I think you and Ramon would get along in that way. He's very much he describes it as a napkin GM.
I do post-it notes. Or index cards. I have a couple index cards sitting on my desk that just have scribbles as we're going. Actually, a lot of the times at conventions, I'll bring just 5 blank pieces of paper that say Scene 1, Scene 2, Scene 3, 4, and 5 on them. I'll have the 2-sentence synopsis that's in the event listing, and then I'll just start saying stuff. And the blank pages are for me to make sure that I reference back correctly to things that I made up on the spot.
That you remember what you said. Yeah, that is... If I'm being totally honest, I'm trying to lean more into that because every single time I start a session, no matter what it is or how much I've prepared, I always feel like I'm not prepared enough. And then I get into it, and then at some point, I'm just saying words. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just making it up as I go on some level. And everyone's having a good time, so that means it's totally fine. Yeah, no, I feel like I need to be post-it noting or napkinning or just having a blank sheet and just kind of trusting the process. I feel like that kind of comes with, like, running games for a long while, because I've been running games for a while now. And I think that's just a muscle you start to learn how to use. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where the sauce is in some cases.
Somehow this is my 24th year running games as a GM.
Wow.
And I am 34 years old.
Honestly, super believable to be like that. Totally makes sense to me.
I have been a forever GM since the time of the old magic. I was there when it was written, Calvin.
Well, if I ever run...
Which is... It's crazy to say because really I'm a third generation game master if you sort of look at the history of us as a hobby.
What do you mean by third generation? Oh, now that we're on a tangent, what do you mean by third generation?
So, theoretically, a generation is like a 20-year cycle or so, give or take. Role-playing games, as we understand them, started in the 70s. So that's the first generation of game masters, the people who were laying the foundation for what the hobby is and how the game works.
Right.
And then I tend to think of it as like the Gen X game master as the second generation of game master, the people who started doing it in like the 90s, late 80s, early 90s in there, where it's sort of gaming becomes really punk rock all of a sudden, which is really cool. And then I come in, I started gaming when I was 10. But I wasn't really a good game master until I was like 18 or 19. So getting into like the 2010s, where I think the third generation of game masters really sort of come into their own as young adults in the new millennium, with their own sort of growing up with a lot of like throwback instincts for gaming. For a lot of like my big influences were always like Bruce Timm, Paul Dini. Things that were very respectful of the past that we've come from, but with hopes to modify what we've been doing going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're still sort of in that generation, getting ready to start the 4th generation of game masters, of people who are coming of age, coming up here in the 2030s or so, as gaming's continue to evolve.
Because I would have thought that we are in that newer stage. I guess I mean, maybe not broadly. Maybe I'm just focusing too much on D&D because I look at the explosion around things like Stranger Things and Critical Role and how that blew up D&D and how that spread to the larger tabletop RPG space.
You know, honestly, I think that's totally fair. I think that I think that is a great turning point for mainstream game mastering going forward, especially like in terms of like actual plays being sort of a formative memory for new gamers now.
Yeah, I think like the actual play era may be a new thing because people are learning games not just from their friends or from reading the books, but they're learning games from seeing other people play them.
Yeah, and major TV shows have D&D episodes, or Stranger Things has like D&D as a whole like backing plot of what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's the space we're in right now, and who knows where that's going to end up by the end of the decade.
Yeah, who knows? I think we're in a very interesting time of transition, especially in regards to fantasy role-playing games. I've been sort of referring to like the balkanization of D&D, where D&D has been the big animal in the room for decades, and will probably continue at least for a little while, but there's places like Darrington Press and Kobold Press and Paizo who are devouring a lot of that audience, and I think people are less likely to... I feel like people play the game that they like, and a lot of people don't branch out, or they have difficulty convincing their group to branch out to try other things, as a majority opinion. We're in sort of a weird niche space where we play lots of different games all the time, but I don't think that is the normal experience for most gamers today.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that, to be honest. I feel like a lot of people still, like, even though this doesn't necessarily apply to me specifically, I feel like a lot of people still start with D&D, and they're, like, the people around them are playing that, their group is playing that, and it's hard to sort of get the motion of, you know, getting everybody to switch to a different thing than what they are used to.
Yeah, learning a new RPG is hard. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of technical writing, and there's a lot of genre expectations to grapple with. And I find once people are comfortable with what they're playing, breaking that inertia it's so hard. It's something that I think about all the time when I'm working on Mutants and Masterminds stuff.
Yeah, actually weirdly, I was having a similar thought, but with, this is a totally random thing, but with building PCs. Because I see a lot of people who have done it say that it's super easy, but also it's like, yeah, because you've done it.
Right.
When it comes to like new tabletop games, you know, I kind of think like 2-3 sessions in, you'll probably find your groove. If not just the first one, depending on how long it is. But yeah, just stepping out of being in like the motion of already playing a certain game, I think is maybe harder than some people might anticipate, or at least from the discussions I've seen online about this particular topic.
Yeah, and I think there's speaking from a game master sort of perspective, there's almost this expectation that the game master knows the rules, and most players don't need to learn the rules. They're just happy to say, I want to do this, and the GM tells them how they do it.
Yeah.
And that could just be me, because I GM a game that not a lot of people play on a regular basis, where I'm like, hey, what's the thing you want to do?
You're also doing convention games, and that is like that kind of feels like specifically the experience of learning the game for the first time at a convention and having the GM just instruct you on how to play it. Yeah,
and thinking from my experiences on USP, where we've run long campaigns of Mutants and Masterminds, and some people still aren't 100% sure how to make a character in M&M. I'm not going to call anybody out, because it's not a problem. It's, you know, you're here to show up and you're here to play and have a good time, and some people have difficulty with rules, so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just interesting to me as somebody who feels like I have to know the rules before I start playing the game. It's just it's a different perspective.
Yeah. And I guess also, to be fair, while I don't think this is going to help either of us, because I don't think either of us are going to apply this, the GM doesn't necessarily have to have that complete encyclopedic knowledge to start running a game.
No, not at all. I have to, because I'm broken on the inside.
No, not even gonna argue, man. I got you, I get it.
But yes, if you're new to GMing, please do not let rules and experience stop you from telling a fun story. At the end of the day, weekly GM tip of the week number 826. Just say, roll something, look at the dice meaningfully, and then decide if you think it's cool enough to succeed.
Don't give everything away. Honestly, the best move as a GM is to make everyone roll a perception check, and that gives you a couple minutes to think.
Weekly GM tip of the week number 827. See, also, go to the bathroom if you need more than a few seconds to think.
Yep. Yeah, no, you gotta find your little, your moments where you can have thoughts and then come back and pretend you know what you're doing.
Yeah, just... We'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes. We need to get up, stretch our legs, grab a drink, grab a snack, and I'm gonna go panic in the bathroom for a minute. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Oh, man.
What do you mean you turn a piece of the source book into stone? Are you out of your mind?
Oh, that's such a classic USB moment, though.
Then we had to go to Steve's house and get a new book. In-game.
I feel like we tangented pretty hard.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
Clues?
Yeah, clues. Well, I mean, I was trying to figure out a way that we can adopt the Alan Wake 2 investigative mechanics into a tabletop RPG, but honestly, I'm just kind of obsessed with how investigations work in Brindlewood Bay that I just want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to incorporate sort of the quantum clue idea with the Mind Palace in Alan Wake 2, where the players have a list of clues and they're trying to figure out what they connect to. So if you're trying to replicate the Mind Palace idea as the GM, you could come up with your list of clues and then a list of questions that the clues could be applied to. Alan Wake does this by saying, basically breaking the clues into categories based on the case, where it's like, what does the cult want? What are the cult's methods? Who are the cult? And then you put your clues in for those 3 categories, and it can expand to additional categories to be like, if the cult wants this, how does this apply? And like building that sort of serial killer yarn board thing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, just sort of like that structure of apply X clue to Y situation and then reach this conclusion and then make new steps from there.
Yeah, and you can internalize that on your side of the screen as the GM by listing out the clues, listing out the possible connections, and then when they acquire enough clues and they decide, you know, sort of hand them the clues on a slip of paper maybe and have them put the clues into categories. Mm-hmm. And then when they have the correct amount of clues in the categories, you can pull out another slip of paper and be like, this is a question that pile of clues has unlocked. Ask that. And then the GM can answer that question as they sort of start pulling around with it. Or if you don't want to answer the question, just handing them the question can be a direction in the investigation that they maybe didn't consider or didn't think about before.
Okay. If we're using the mechanics of Brindlewood, could you do something like tiered clues, where if you come to a conclusion, it's maybe not the answer to the mystery itself, but it can unlock another clue that you can use later?
Yeah, I think that's a great application of the that's not the truth in the GM adds a wrinkle mechanic, where if you fail your theorizing check, the GM adds that extra level of difficulty, but as an olive branch, you also give them an additional direction to look to start steering their theorizing in a different direction.
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure this game is linked below in the description so people can check it out, because I too am going to check it out.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's powered by the Apocalypse mechanics. Mm. The Gauntlet is the website. They do Brindlewood Bay, the Between, Public Access, the Silt versus role-playing game, and the Trophy RPG. I don't know anything except for Brindlewood Bay.
Well, if people are into it, there'll be a link to the website below on YouTube, so you can go ahead and check that out. We are quite a bit into the recording, so there is maybe one other thing we wanted to talk about, and then one other fun thing I was hoping to get to, but I don't know.
I think we got time. We'll make it work.
This might just be a really long episode. But, I don't know, shall we pivot to a new topic, or do you want to cover more with investigations in tabletop RPGs?
Yeah, I think we are good to go ahead and dip into something else.
Okay. Well, do you want to talk some M&M stuff, or do you want to... I really do want to make sure we squeeze in at least one random public domain supervillain adventure. But we do have some M&M stuff to talk about.
Yeah, since this podcast is after Mutants and Masterminds Monday on July 14th, 2025. for anybody who is out there wondering. I am happy to announce that we will be going into the 4th edition of Mutants and Masterminds very soon. We'll be debuting a PDF playtest edition at Gen Con this year. We're going to be bringing them with us to sell, so people have the chance to take a look at the new rules. Not in their final form. This is just a playtest document, so people will have the chance to pick this up at Gen Con. Steve and I will be doing a panel at Gen Con on Friday at 4 p.m. to go over sort of the roadmap for Mutants and Masterminds going forward. That'll be in the Crown Plaza Haymarket A, and all of the events I'll be running at Gen Con, which is 4 Titan City games, will be using the Origins editions of the rules, that being the playtest version of the rules. We're calling it Mutants and Masterminds Origins Edition for the playtest because it's the origin of the new game, and you're all getting an opportunity to kick the tires on it and see how you feel about the new rules and provide playtest feedback from August until September of 2025. And then we will dive fully into preparing the new edition for release sometime in 2026.
Fun.
So lots of very exciting things.
Okay, well, I gotta know, because I'm already curious, what does this mean for the game in terms of mechanics? And then we can talk about what this means for the game in terms of lore, because there is an Earth Prime setting that I'm sure people are going to be curious about.
Yeah, so mechanically speaking, one of the biggest things that's been on our mind in developing the new edition of the game is streamlining the onboarding process for people who are new to Mutants and Masterminds, who might come to its point-by-character creation system and seem a little overwhelmed by all the choices that they have to make and how much math goes into it and how daunting that can feel. So we have retooled how some of the effects work. We have strengthened the archetype system where you can pick a superhero or superheroic archetype, make a couple of changes to that archetype, and then you have a fully feasible character that's ready to play for you to describe however you want, for things like battle suits, crime fighters, paragons, weapon masters, all that fun stuff. Mechanically, it will still feel like Mutants Masterminds. It's still going to be a d20 plus a number versus a difficulty check. The higher you roll, the better you do. The lower you roll, the worse you do. Hero points are still here. We still have things like extra effort and advantages. Yeah, a lot of it has been about streamlining the experience to make gameplay and character creation come a little closer together in terms of perceived complexity. Yeah, Steve knows a lot more about the design aspect of everything that's been going on, but we've tweaked and messed with things. The goal is to make the game almost as backwards compatible as possible while still adding in some fresh elements, because game design has evolved a little bit since 2011 when 3rd edition first came out. Somehow we've had a 14-year cycle for this edition, which is amazing, and I'm glad because this is the first Mutants and Masterminds game I ever played, and I'm very excited to see what the future of the game looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how much detail you can go into that with then, because I was kind of curious what you meant by streamlining it, but I suppose we'll see that in the actual document itself. Because I know there are tools in 3rd edition for creating characters, working from archetypes and then sort of defining those down. That's honestly what I use a lot when I'm making original characters, is I will start from an archetype, work through that, and then get like power profiles or something, and then build off of that. So is this just going to make that process easier or clearer in some way?
Yeah, it's going to make that process. We learned a lot with the archetype system in the basic Heroes Handbook, which sort of started this almost a la carte version of character creation rather than just leaning into the point buy system. So we've learned a little bit about information presentation, and I think that's where the main streamlining is coming, is how the information is presented, how much is laid at the player's feet before they're invested in playing the game and before they're ready to get up and moving.
Okay, so is it still using the point buy system for character creation?
Yes, the Origin Edition has the rules for how to build a character with points, and it also has the archetypes ready to go to select certain characters if you really like a particular kind of superhero. Okay,
so you can put your character together with these archetypes, and if you want to break it down, you can get under the hood and start spending points more specifically.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how people react to the way the information is presented. And there's a few things that we have moved around. For instance, in 3rd edition, the way damage works is it is 15 plus the rank of your damage to equal your DC. And for afflictions, it is 10 plus the rank of your affliction to get to your DC. and we have moved both to be 10 so that they're uniform.
Yeah, that's totally fair to do. I always wondered why they were different. I guess so damage felt more impactful, but it's probably easier to understand if those are the same.
Yeah, I think it's going to really clear up things like area of effects, which have always had 2 separate DCs, because area of effect works where you get the dodge check, which is 10 versus the rank, and then the damage is either full damage or half damage, which is 15 plus rank or 15 plus half rank. So little things like that where there are moments for us to take some of the confusion out. So we can just say your dodge check is 10 plus rank, and then your toughness check is 10 plus rank or 10 plus half rank, so that there's less disparity in the math.
Yeah.
And that is going to be so hard for me to get used to after 15 years of doing it the other way.
Yeah, true. I mean, you've been playing this game more regularly for longer than I have. I mean, I've been playing it for 4 years now regularly, but before that, it was kind of a more sporadic thing on my end. Except for in college.
Yeah.
I did play it pretty regularly in college. Yeah, I'm super curious. I really want to get my hands on that when I get a chance to, because I want to see how the character creation works specifically. Because that is the criticism I've seen the most of 3rd edition, is the complexity of character creation. And, like, from my perspective, it's not... Well, I mean, this is the PC building thing again. It's not as complex as people have described it, but I've also done it before. So yeah, I kind of have my head wrapped around it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I have seen a lot of people approaching Mutants and Masterminds for the first time. It's one of the benefits of all the convention games that I run. Is people sit down who've never played the game before, and then I see sort of the wheels turning as they're looking at things, and sort of the minor like, uh-oh, this game has a lot of rules. That happens. And one of the things I focus on the most when I'm playing with new people is showing them that gameplay is so easy. It is so quick, it's so fast. Once your character is built, you're off to the races. It looks like a lot, but it is not as much information as you think it is.
Yeah, that tends to be the way of it. Like, everything's easier than it looks, but it doesn't look easy.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I can't run every Mutants and Masterminds game in the world, as convenient as that would be for people playing the game. So we also want to make it easy for GMs who may be tackling Mutants and Masterminds for the first time.
Totally understandable, because we were talking about before how people aren't learning games from the books anymore, but someone has to. Somebody
has to. It's not going to be me this time. I'm not reading the book. I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to go on vibes.
So the book is going to have updated mechanics. Are we going to see any updated lore for the Earth Prime setting?
Not in the Origin edition that's coming for Gen Con. The plan for releasing books, the first 2 books that were going to be released are the Hero's Handbook and the Masterminds Manual, which are going to form the bedrock of every Mutants and Masterminds campaign. We've expanded the Masterminds Manual to include pretty much all of the vital information for a game master looking to tell a superhero story. We've got villainous archetypes in there, minions, ways to stat up hazards, and sort of game philosophy behind superhero role-playing games. And then the Hero's Handbook is the bedrock of the mechanics of the system. So how effects work, how to create characters, what action and adventure looks like. We are incorporating reactions into 4th edition in a way that has not quite been so prevalent in 3rd edition. There are going to be many advantages that allow you to use your reaction to do a lot of really cool things, such as easy as what Bowman does, where if somebody misses him with a close combat attack, he punches them. Yeah. That's an advantage now instead of a power that you have to build. Or there's also one where if somebody successfully hits you, you can punch them with your reaction. Or one I'm really excited about called Critical Volley, where if you hit with a ranged attack with a critical hit, you can use your reaction to attack them a second time with your reaction instead of having to use extra effort. There's lots of cool little, there's a leadership one called Die for Cover, where you can use your reaction to shout out to all of your teammates, spend a hero point, and let them take a half move action to see if they can get out of the radius of an area of effect attack. Just things like that.
Interesting. Okay. Oh yeah, I would really like to see those leadership advantages then.
Yeah. There's a new command action that we've added to the list of standard actions, but there are also advantages that let you use your reaction to do a command action to do lots of different things.
Yeah, reacting isn't too much of a thing in 3rd edition, at least maybe not off the top of my head.
Yeah, 3rd edition's biggest reactions that I can think of off the top of my head are interpose.
Yeah.
Which doesn't take a reaction action. You can just do it once per turn. And the deflect effect is another one where you can basically reflexively deflect attacks that you can see within a certain range. And I'm very excited for reactions, and in particular, a lot of these new advantages that are making leadership characters feel heroic and feel like they are the sort of heart of the team in a way that the way that third edition hasn't necessarily done to the best of its ability.
So like the damage mechanics and things like that still function the same, or are those going to be updated as well?
It works similar to the same way, where you take damage, you roll a resistance check, and then what you roll compared to the difficulty check determines how much damage you receive. So still no hit point system or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And in the Masterminds manual, we'll be including ways to gauge damage based on the vibe you're looking to tell your superhero story with. The Origin Edition will have something similar to the Valiant Adventures role-playing game, with damage succeeding on your toughness check causes a hit penalty to come through, which is a bruise. You take a bruise, basically, if you succeed. If you succeed with a degree of success, you're fine. If you have resistant toughness or impervious or hardened toughness or anything like that. And then 1 bruise, 1 daze, 1 bruise, 1 stagger, and incapacitated going down the line.
Yeah.
But if you want to make things hurt real bad, you can dial that up, similar to the Valiant Adventures role-playing game, or what I did in the Titan City serial that we have going on right now with Dustbrook, with everybody just being hurt all the time.
So was Valiant like sort of a step in between the two? Like, did that help you flesh out some of the mechanics that would come into 4th edition?
Yeah, we tested some things in the Valiant Adventures role-playing game that are reflective of the grittier and more visceral world of the Valiant comics, but we wanted to see how people would react to some of the things, so we had a moment to sort of review that and look at how we might implement that for Mutants and Masterminds going forward. Valiant has its very distinct style, so there's definitely things in there that are a little more brutal, a little more hardcore than what we're looking for in Mutants and Masterminds Prime. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely a fun opportunity to get some community engagement, community feedback for what some changes to Mutants and Masterminds might look like.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, you had talked about, making onboarding a bit easier. So people who are approaching this from maybe a more class-based game, are they going to find that a bit easier to work with if they are more used to having like specific classes that have specific abilities versus a point-by system that you sort of mold into your own thing by like using these archetypes?
Yeah, I'd say if you're familiar with superheroes as a genre, mm-hmm. you can look at the archetypes and you could see a hero that is similar to that you can sort of base your imaginings on about, if I pick this archetype, what kind of character am I going to be? And we've built the power sets in those archetypes to feel very iconic for those particular kinds of heroes. When you think of a battle suit, somebody in a suit of armor that zips around, maybe in cherry red with gold armor, or a crime fighter who's got a cowl and a long black cape who squints at people and is the knight, possibly. You'll be able to see those archetypes, and if you're used to class-based games, you could be like, oh, I would like to play this class, and then you've got a character that is balanced for the system and is viable from the point buy perspective. So you're not going to be underpowered, you're not going to be underwhelming, and you'll be able to effectively play the game just from the word go with those archetypes. I'm actually using them to rebuild a lot of my convention pre-gens right now because I'm running my 4 games using these new rules, and that has been an interesting flip of the switch for me.
Yeah, well, how have you found that then? Like converting these characters from 3rd to 4th edition, is it like a massive shift, or is it just more clearly laid out?
Sometimes it's easy because sometimes I have delightful little guys like Challenger who are just an acrobat with a slingshot, and then sometimes Andy makes a character, and I'm like, okay, let me see how I want to build this power. Okay, Resonant, what are we doing with this? How many gemstones do you have? Okay, cool. What are everything cool? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Oh, and sometimes Jonesy has Mortis and is like, does it have a soul? And I'm like, I don't know. You want to be insubstantial and walk through dimensions and have soul snatching powers? Let's do it. Let's figure out how to do that in the new game while I'm in crunch time.
Yeah, I've always really liked Trinity's powers.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're very cool, but as another character I am a fan of.
Yeah, and Andy makes amazingly cool characters. They're just
complex.
They always have something complicated.
Yeah, I guess you're just trying to figure out how to break and rebuild the system, basically. Take something complex in 3rd edition, and then you're trying to figure out how to rebuild that in 4th. And has that
Yeah,
helped you sort of figure out mechanics for 4th edition or how things should be laid out?
I've been leaving a lot of notes as I've been doing this so that I can consult with Steve about it, because Steve is the primary rules designer and the primary developer for 4th edition. And I've been a very helpful source of feedback, I hope. Yeah, it's been interesting taking some... And that's one of the beautiful things about Mutants and Masterminds, is once you understand the point-buy system, you can get very intricate in your character builds and leave people who've been running the game for a long time wondering, okay, how did you do that? That's so cool. And getting the chance to sort of cut into it and trying to find out how to keep the spirit of that ability with the new way some of the new effects work. And it's been a fun challenge. It's been really refreshing in a frustrating sort of way.
Okay. So, I guess there are new effects as well then. Like, does that change up how certain things play out? Like, are afflictions do they still function the same way? Because that's a pretty significant part of the mechanics of the game.
Yeah, so in the Origin Edition, and I'll specify again that nothing in the Origin Edition is final. We just started opening this playtest window for everybody. But in the Origin Edition, we've taken the affliction effect, we've left it as is, where you can sort of add your ingredients to create the affliction that you want to. But to most effects, we've added these things called configurations, which are common builds for that effect. So affliction has a ton of things like dazzling or sleep or discombobulate or things like that or restrained, where you understand what that affliction is trying to do and you don't have to spell out affliction resisted by dodge, blah 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 blah. You can say, I have a net arrow and it is a snare 9, and that's all the information you need to know what the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degree are of that effect, or if it's only a 1st and 2nd degree. You know what that does, you don't need to reference it as the whole written out sentence, which I think is just beautiful.
Okay. So you don't have to build it that way, it just is that way.
Right. You can just take it that way, and it tells you how many points per rank affliction as that costs.
Okay, but you can still build it. You can still build the exact same thing with the point buy system. It just already exists for you to use if you want to simplify that.
Yeah, and you can use that configuration as a stepping point for additional modification if you want to. Like if you have a snare effect, you can add the multi-attack extra and just add 1 more point per rank to the cost that's listed below. But now your snare has multi-attack on it. Or if you want to add a limitation, you can add distracting and take -1 per rank off to reflect that you have to focus more when you're using your snare arrow or things like that. Instead of starting at the baseline, I just have affliction, it's 1 point per rank, and then in the current system, you'd have to go, all right, I want my affliction to be range, so I add increased range for +1 per rank, and then I add cumulative for another +1 per rank, and now I'm at 3 points per rank for this affliction. We've taken and done a lot of that in advance so that you can start with a baseline version of a snare, and you know exactly how many points that costs and what that looks like.
Okay, I see. And then you just modify from there instead of, from the ground up.
Right. Or you could take it as is, and it'll still be a serviceable snare.
Yeah, no, I think that'll make things a bit easier when it comes to character creation, especially if you're not using any particular digital tools. If you're doing it on paper, that would definitely make things easier.
Yeah, coming up with a character creation aid is something very much on our mind right now.
Are there plans for digital tools in the future then?
Yes, so we're not continuing our partnership with Lone Wolf and their Hero Lab software for 4th edition. Right now, we're looking ahead to virtual tabletop support and options for the new edition, including interactive character sheets and character generators. But we don't have any plans that are finalized. We'll announce stuff as we get it.
Okay, I mean, I'm looking forward to playing this on Foundry because I got a lot of cool Foundry stuff. So hopefully that is something that can be done.
I hope so. Our virtual tabletop team is small but mighty, and Foundry is one we hear about a lot, and I hope we can get something going on over there, because it's a great system if you're smart enough to use it. I'm just not smart enough to use it.
Yeah, you just gotta add a lot of mods to it, and then add too many, and then that's how you use Foundry.
Yeah, that sounds right. I've seen you use Foundry before, and I've seen people use Mutants and Masterminds on Foundry, and it's great. I don't know how they do that. I have a friend named Paul who runs a lot of M&M on Foundry, and he you click on your character, and then you click on who you want to attack, and then you click a button for the attack, and it rolls the resistance check and tells you what you get without any delay in play. It's nuts.
Yeah, I know a system exists for it in Foundry, fan made one, but I have not checked it out recently. So it might be a lot more robust than it was last time I saw it.
Yeah, people love Foundry. I don't know anything about programming or math or anything like that.
You don't have to dive into it too much. I've had to, because some stuff didn't work the way I wanted it to, but yeah, you don't have to. I mean, it's another one of those, like, how much do you want to break this sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's very exciting. Will the Origins edition of the book, 4th edition, will that be available digitally as well?
Yes, we'll have it available on the Green Ronin online store for people to purchase, so that they can get into the playtest to provide feedback. The playtest, like I said, is going to go from August until September of 2025, and then after that we need to implement playtest feedback and finalize how the new text is going to look for editing and production. Playtesters will be able to submit playtest. We have some online forums and channels via the Atomic Think Tank and the Green Ronin website. AtomicThinkTank.com and GreenRonin.com, respectively.
Okay, that is what I was also going to ask, like how people are going to provide that information. Is there any specific thing you're looking for in the playtest feedback? Any specific mechanics you're curious about, or you just want everything thrown at you all at once?
I think everything thrown at us all at once. We just want to see how 4th edition is empowering you to tell bigger and better superhero stories with your friends. I want to know what your thoughts are. I want to know what you like, what you think is an interesting change, what you maybe don't like as much. Just whatever feedback we can acquire is valuable. It's valuable information for us. We have a pretty great process about taking all this feedback and looking for commonalities. And Steve and I think we are a dynamic, creative collaboration. We're open to discussion and looking at different things, and I think we both inspire each other to be better creators.
Awesome.
At least he inspires me to be a better creator. I hope I could do that for him. I shouldn't speak for him.
I'm sure he would agree. Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm looking forward to this game. I'm looking forward to this playtest. Hopefully our listeners are as well. We have talked about Mutants and Masterminds on the podcast more than a few times. So if you are interested, there will be links below to the Mutants and Masterminds Monday episode on this. And when the playtest link becomes available, we'll be sure to include that in the video description as well.
Yeah, and the last thing I know Calvin wanted to know about was setting information for Earth Prime, because one of the cool things about Mutants and Masterminds is it's had a dynamic setting that's updated as the editions have rolled on. And I'll just say we have plans to revise and update Earth Prime, including Freedom City and Emerald City in upcoming 4E products. You'll get your first look at those things in the Hero's Handbook and the Masterminds Manual. But there's a third book coming out a little bit after those two called Most Wanted, which is going to be a detailed background for, last I counted, it was over 100 villains. Some of Earth Prime's most dangerous renegades and ne'er-do-wells. We're going to be preparing their backstories, preparing their stat blocks to be sort of that first real hit of information for Earth Prime as it stands.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I guess players will, they'll be making their own characters, but they're going to need some villains to fight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I keep telling Steve, we need to make Least Wanted to go with Most Wanted. Which is just, in my mind, it is a book of like minions and crooks and jobbers and just lame little villains that everybody loves to beat up.
You do need your D-listers.
Yeah, like Abracadabra and his never-ending stream of alliteration. That was my favorite thing that we did in the Dead Rising universe. And the Banana Gang that was hanging out with Doc Simeon.
Oh, those guys were fun.
The Banana Queen!
I'm super curious about Pharaohburg and definitely hearing more about that, but I'm sure that's going to be coming up in a future book or a future setting book as well.
Yeah, that is one of the last 3rd edition books that are going to be coming out. It's in production right now. Vigilante's Handbook is going to be a 3rd edition book. And as noted, Valiant Adventures Heroes Handbook and Worlds of Valiant are in production. That's going to be sort of like a standalone 3.5 edition almost. And we have a few 3rd edition Astonishing Adventures still on their way. So 3E has some very exciting things coming out still as we tentatively get ready for 4th.
Awesome.
Yeah, Pharaohburg is so cool. The section on Pharaohburg in the Vigilante's Handbook is over 30,000 words. It's a huge city.
I am very excited for a Vigilante game.
Yeah, it's going to be great. There's a GM running some Vigilante's Handbook stuff at Gen Con this year, so it's going to be dope.
I'm going to have to yoink some inspiration from that. Well, I can't really think of much else to say with regards to 4th. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about 4th edition before going into the playtest? You did mention that the date that it's coming out, but is there anything else that you want people to know about before jumping into this game?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Just be kind to each other. Make sure that you play good games and be a big damn hero. I love that for you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have been recording for like 80-ish minutes. So this is probably going to be a long episode because I would like to put all of this out together at once.
That makes sense.
Do you have time to put together a very quick adventure? 5-minute
I always have time to put together a quick adventure. That's like my whole GM start.
Oh. Bet. Okay, so last time, Alex, that we had you on, we did a fun little thing where we rolled on a table of random public domain supervillains from comics from the 40s, 50s, all those wacky ideas. And we put them together to make a handful of fun little adventures. I have updated the list since then. I've replaced the ones that we used, but I have made a list of favorites that we can just freely pick from.
It's the Ant Queen we did last time, right?
Yeah, so last time we had the Ant Queen, we had Drox, who was like a space villain from, I think, Saturn, I want to say?
Hate that guy.
We had Madame Muscle, we had Tom Thumb, and then we had the favorites of Gorilla with a Human Brain, who is rather self-explanatory. We had Dr. Dracula, who is a guy in a green jumpsuit with red underwear, who called himself Dr. Dracula, and he had like a ray gun or something. And we had Mr. Crime, who is just a spirit of crime that like makes people do evil.
I love that for them. I think we should roll for it. What do you think?
Oh, we're absolutely rolling for it, because I do have the new list, but Mr. Crime, cool. Gorilla with a Human Brain, and Dr. Dracula are just, like, freebies that we could just add on.
Amazing. The return of Dr. Dracula.
Because, they're classics. But I guess we both roll a d20, we both get a villain, and then we come up with something with those villains involved. And if you want to use one of the 3 favorites, we can throw them in for free as well.
Well, in true Alex Thomas fashion, I have rolled a 2 on my d20.
A 2? That is one of the new ones. That is Dr. Martinius and the Brain Men of Mars. They first appeared in Fantastic Comics number 6 in 1940. Dr. Martinius is a strong, shirtless man in a gladiator-style outfit with a spiked helmet, and the Brain Men are small humanoids who wear mechanized exoskeletons to support their oversized heads.
Huh.
So, Dr. Martinius, he's a man from Earth who traveled to Mars and conquered the inhabitants, and then declared himself the Warlord of Mars. That's as much explanation as you're going to get from this comic. He then declared himself the Warlord of Mars, and he used the resident Brain Men to come up with a plan to conquer Earth and then the universe. Their plan involved launching meteors at Earth that contained Martian insects that would spread disease. The plan was thwarted, but Dr. Martinius' fate was unknown.
So Dr. Martinius could come back at any time.
Indeed.
Is that what Gladiator 2 is about?
It might be. Yeah, I don't know why this guy is a doctor, because I saw his outfit and it was interesting to say the least.
Look, anybody who's gone through the thesis process, I completely sympathize with having a mental breakdown and becoming a space gladiator of Mars. I guess my question is, he already proved he could successfully take over a planet. What does he need the Brain Men for? He should have just started on Earth.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Brain Men were easier.
This seems like a guy who didn't believe in himself enough.
Like, he should have just taken over Earth in the first place. Why did he?
Yeah, you should have just started with Earth. I feel like you did the hard part of going to Mars first.
Right. Like,
and you got a PhD. Where did you get your gladiator armor? Did you make it? Did you buy it?
Yeah,
Did you have it when you arrived on Mars, or is that something the Brain Men gave you as a reward for your conquest?
I think if you're a conqueror, you just have to dress a certain way.
True.
Dress for the job you want. Like Warlord of Mars. Alright.
Good for Dr. Martinius, honestly.
I'm gonna make a roll, and it is 18.
By our powers combined, we have a 20.
So powerful.
Like a dirty 20.
18 is Little Miss Murder, who showed up in Doll Man number 13 in 1947. She's dressed in like Southern Belle attire with a frilly dress and a red umbrella. Little Miss Murder was already a skilled and experienced killer when she married Mike Mara, a notorious gangster. After poisoning her husband, she took over his gang and proved to be a cunning and ruthless crime boss in her own right. She behaved very politely and wore the anachronistic trappings of Southern Belle and feigned a dainty disposition, but in reality, she was a tough and cold-hearted monster.
I know her. This is just Baby Doll from Batman the Animated Series.
It's a
tall.
little bit that.
But adult size, so it's weird. Is she adult size? I guess I shouldn't assume that she's not little.
I believe she is, but we can change things up as we wish. That's what public domain characters are for.
Her name is Little Miss Murder. It feels like a play on Little Miss Muffet.
Yeah, I think a little bit.
Sat on her tuffet, eating her Curzon Whey, or doing her murders and jaywalking. I don't know.
So we've got an Earth crime boss and a space villain.
Clearly, this is a turf war situation. Okay. Or are they teaming up?
Like Dr. Martinez finally decided to start doing his takeover.
Conquer the world plan. And Little Miss murders his vanguard. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, like he's working through her or taking over her organization to do it?
I feel like working through her would be interesting. Especially if we do decide to make her little, like Baby Doll from the Batman series. Because that means she's the same size as the Brain Men of Mars.
Oh, yeah, she can wear one of their mech suits under her costume. Yeah. Okay.
People go to grab Little Miss Murder, she just wails on.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Surprise! 'Tis I, Little Miss Murder.
So, Dr. Martinez, I mean, his whole plan failed. He's out of resources, he's out of luck, but he, I don't know, makes his way back to Earth, and, you know, he figures, I could do it once. If I can succeed there, I can succeed anywhere. There being Mars.
If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
So, I don't know, maybe he makes contact with Little Miss Murder, and in exchange for this powerful mecha suit, she gives him something that he needs.
Yeah, a staging ground for his brain men to use as a base while they try to take over their first target, which is, of course, the city all of our heroes live in.
Yes, the city of Citiesville.
Yes, Citiesville. We love Citiesville. With their mayor, Mr. Mark Mayer. So yeah, the little brain men and Little Miss Murder are working together. What are they doing? What attracts the hero's attention? Because in my mind, clearly the first scene of this adventure is the hero stumbling upon the brain men in the midst of something. Because these little guys are hilarious and they've got these exosuits and they're doing some kind of crime. Maybe as a favor to Little Miss Murder, or maybe as, you know, Dr. Martinez has found he needs something for his diabolical plan. Something to help him take over the city of Citiesville.
Yeah, I'm picturing some sort of, like, advanced technological weapon that they're acquiring. Something that Little Miss Murder can make some money off of if she sells parts of it, but that Dr. Martinez really needs. And, you know, their connection that the players will learn about is that she knows about this thing, she maybe had her own plans, she just couldn't enact them. But this guy shows up with some spacemen that are able to carry out this heist. And that is what the players end up running into, is these spacemen stealing some sort of... I'm kind of picturing this adventure taking place in the Golden Age. So they're stealing some sort of advanced, quote-unquote, computer technology.
We need some processors for our machine.
We need some punch cards.
We've stolen your punch card! One of the aliens is Alan Tudyk for some reason.
Oh, of course. So the players come across the aliens stealing this technology, those fiends. And could be a combat, could be investigation, but that leads back to perhaps whatever base these guys are working out of. Or maybe...
Yeah, I think it's got to lead back to one of their bases. I think Little Miss Murder. In my mind, one of them is in over their head, and I think it's Little Miss Murder.
I was kind of thinking the brain men are, but yeah.
The brain men are always in over their head because they're short and their heads are big.
You know what? Fair.
But I think what if the little brain men have set up this whole situation so they can get free of Dr. Martinius?
Oh,
and
they're setting them up
they're
for
playing
a
them off of each other. Yeah, they're setting both of the villains up for a fall to maybe make a deal with the heroes to be like, look, man, we want to go back to Mars and not have a human dictator. Sorry. This is the only way we could think to pull this off.
Oh, and just some way to get rid of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
That the heroes interrupt. It could be like, I don't know, like if Martinius wants them to build some sort of device, maybe he believes they're building it, but it's actually something that would, when activated, destroy both Martinius and Little Miss Murder, but also
I think that's dope.
Like cause massive damage to Citiesville. But if the players are able to figure this out in the course of their investigation, they can sort of prevent that, or at least not have to worry about it as a hazard later.
I think the hard part is getting one of the little brain men alone to have a conversation with him. Like, in my mind, most of the little brain men are worthless, and there's one brain man who's a leader of the brain men.
Yeah.
who has the authority to negotiate with the player characters.
The one with the biggest brain.
Yes, and it just so happens to be whichever one they get their hands on. Because that's how player characters work, and they're going to see, he's just a little guy, we should adopt this little brain guy.
That might be the easiest part, yeah.
Yeah. The brain guy's like, look, we're not evil. We want to go home, and we're sick of this tall guy yelling at us all the time about domination. He thinks he owns our planet, but nobody owns our planet. We don't believe in private property.
I like these brain men.
We just tell him he's allowed to be the dictator because that makes him, like, quiet for a while.
And he showed up with this outfit, and
we don't know. We don't have fidget toys on our planet. Have you invented fidget toys yet? Dr. Martinez needs Adderall and help. He does not need brain men.
No. But, you know, I'm sure Martinius will have, like, his own whatever devices he has when the players do confront him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It wasn't very specific, but he does have a sword that I'm sure can be made of some sort of space metal.
He has a lightsaber.
So the players learn about this device, whatever Martinius was up to, or how the Braidmen have corrupted it. They go with the intent to shut it down, but they have to deal with Little Miss Murder and her own forces, because she is, at the moment, tied into this. But probably also wants out. I don't know that she would have taken this guy super seriously, but then, you know, partway through realizes, like, oh, he could actually do this. As far as she knows.
It's just a big cluster at the end. Everybody fighting everybody. With
the heroes caught up in the middle, trying to save these brain men and find a way to get them home, but also stop this gladiator doctor.
Then the city of Citiesville is saved. Or not, depending on how your players roll. Maybe the city of Citiesville is now Cratersville, USA.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, that's a fun little adventure. Yeah, there's like a ton of these. There were a couple of new ones that I was hoping to get. Maybe next time.
Yeah, we'll have to get them next time.
There is like this one living doll thing that was very creepy.
That could be Little Miss Murder's lieutenant or henchperson or something. Because she showed up in Dollface #1 or whatever.
Oh yeah, Little Miss Murder was... Which one was that? Let me scroll back to that. Dollman number 13.
Dollman number 13.
Surprisingly, the living doll was not from a Dollman issue.
Well, whack.
Alright, that's gonna be the episode for now, because it's gonna be a pretty long one.
Yeah. Oh man, Ramon, where were you to stop us?
Yeah. I mean, it's usually my job to keep things on track, but when I'm off track, then it just gets worse.
We just be yapping.
We indeed do be yapping. Alright, so Alex, thanks a ton for coming on and talking investigations and dropping this big ol' news about 4th edition Mutants and Masterminds. It's very exciting. I'm very curious how it's going to work out. And I hope it makes it easier for people to hop into this game, because I feel like there is a lot of space right now for a superhero tabletop RPG.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I saw Superman this week. It was awesome. I fully believe in James Gunn. I always have, always will. Which I hope is not a clip that is going to be used against me in 30 years. But yeah, I think it's a great time to be a superhero fan, and I think it's an even better time to find the inspiration to tell your own superhero stories. And I hope that people who do that, I hope Mutants and Masterminds is part of the conversation, because it's always been my favorite superhero role-playing game. I'm biased, but I feel like its mechanics allow you to tell whatever kind of story you want and whatever being a superhero means to you. So I hope people love it as much as I do. I'm very pleased with the work we've been doing, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Hell yeah. And again, everything will be linked below as it becomes available. I'm sure we'll be talking about this in the future. We might have to bring Alex on again so we can do some more public domain supervillain stuff.
Yes, we should do a whole episode of that.
That would kind of be a blast, to be honest. That would be fun.
I love it.
All right, well, thanks a ton, everybody out there, for hanging out and listening to this episode. If you want to hear more from the Women Dice podcast, we're available on YouTube and on Spotify and a whole ton of other podcast platforms. As well, there are occasional gaming streams on the YouTube channel. Links below on YouTube. There's going to be a whole bunch of writers and creators for the Lancer RPG that we've had on the show over the years, as well as different games like the Soar RPG or Dawn or Fathomless Gears, as well as Mechanized Body, the card-based mech RPG that Ramon and Trey are working on, that we've talked about a handful of times, and Ramon's own RPG versus this fighting game-inspired tabletop RPG. All that stuff is going to be linked below, as well as a certain GoFundMe page, which we didn't have a ton of time to talk about, but there is essentially there are certain words I want to use that I don't know if I'm allowed to use because I don't want to...
Chicanery. Chicanery is the word I would use.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's some chicanery going on with regards to some book distribution that Green Ronin needs some support to deal with. Essentially, legalized thievery is what it is, but...
Yeah, there's issues going on with a distributor in the United States that has filed for bankruptcy and is attempting to legally steal hundreds of thousands of dollars of books from publishers like Green Ronin Publishing and other independent publishers, and even a couple of big ones. So anything that you can do to help any company right now that has a GoFundMe, but Green Ronin has opened one to help support our legal fees as we fight this battle against corruption and the system and terribleness.
And that will be linked below, as well as a video going into more details on it. We didn't have a lot of time to talk about it, but it is a very, honestly, it's chicanery. It is a situation that should not be allowed to happen, and hopefully people are able to actually combat that, because it is very unfair to just take someone else's thing and then sell it as if it's your own. You know what? I'm not going to get into it. We're having a fun, happy episode, so we're going to end on a high note.
Yeah. Watch out for little brain men under your bed tonight.
If they can fit.
They're from Mars, and they're delightful.
But if they need help to get home, then just help them out, because that one shirtless doctor guy is kind of a jerk. Yeah. All right. Well, Alex, thanks again for hanging out. I'm pretty sure we've talked about a whole lot of stuff that people are going to be interested in, and yeah, hopefully next time we have you on, we can just do more adventure crafting. Yeah, that's always fun. Thanks for having me, and we'll see you soon. All right. Well, for all of our GMs and players out there who are finding their way back from Mars, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.